Hello, everybody. My name is Jim Gale, and thanks to Dr. Wolf and the platforms and the momentum that he is building, I'm able to chat with you today about a topic that I've never spoken about in my life because I didn't have awareness of the topic, the feeling. And the topic is depression. So, my mom right now is in process of transition. And what struck me over the last 10 days was something that I had never expected, nor could I expect, because I just had no point of reference. Well, I became incredibly depressed, and I didn't know this feeling before. It's like a void, it's like an energy vampire or a suction that takes all of the energy out of and it left me with an incredibly deep and profound sadness. And knowing what I know about the 5 stages of grief, right? DABDA, depression, anger, bartering, or denial, anger, bartering, depression, and acceptance. Well, I never really went through denial that my mom was dying. I knew she was, and I believe that this is just a part of the process of spirit. Well, I didn't get angry about it. I didn't barter about it. I went right from fairly oblivious to depression. And it was so shocking. So, knowing what I know about these stages and about psychology and neurolinguistics, I decided to intentionally and consciously relish the depression. Instead of trying to avoid it or trying to suppress it, I went as deeply into it as I could imagine. Now, there's a backstory here that I want to share with you. And by the way, I've reached out to quite a few of my friends, and I'm aware that a lot of people, possibly more than ever in the history of the world, are suffering from trauma, which is leading to disease and depression. So, while I'm aware of the events of our world, that we are in some type of, for lack of a better word, some people call it a war or Leela, the divine game, we are experiencing global trauma. And it comes from the same place. I call it evil, right? I grew up in Minnesota, so I will use the words God and evil, but I do not discount other names for the same general things, right? What is evil? It's the opposite of live, right? It's live backwards. It's no life. It's a contraction of spirit, a contraction of energy, a contraction of creativity. Fear is a lack of faith. So I decided to go into this energy system that we have named depression and to dig around. And so, to the backstory, about 2 years ago, I don't get sick very often. I live in a food forest, 100% off grid. It's paradise. But I got sick about 2 years ago. And the experience that I had was absolutely mind-blowing. And I'd read about this from Dr. Hawkins, David Hawkins, his book in Power versus Force, and then his subsequent books, where he talks about his process of becoming enlightened. Right now, I want to frame that word a little bit. The word enlightened does not mean that somebody can turn water into wine, or somebody can turn, the sea into fishes, and all of these stories that we've heard. The word enlightened is simply a mind free of fear. That's it. So 2 years ago, it was a Friday night, and I was in a lot of pain, and I had a fever, about 107 fever. I'm also aware that the body knows what's best. So I did not try to suppress the fever with drugs or chemicals, pharmaceuticals. I went into it. Saturday, and I didn't sleep hardly at all that night. I sweated a lot. I drank a lot of water because I could feel I had some internal kidney issues. I had a lot of internal issues. And the next day, I basically tossed and turned all day. And then on Sunday night, well, Sunday was a tough day. I was in a lot of pain. But then Sunday night, it all came to a head. It was one of the dark nights of this physical body, right? It wasn't depression. And it's very different because the physical pain that I was experiencing was very, very different than what I experienced over the last 10 days. It was a physical more than a spiritual or emotional transmutation of energy. And thanks to my studies, and that's why I'm very excited to share this message with you, because thanks to my studies, we know that avoiding these energy systems, these, whatever you want to call them, right? If you're a religious person, you might call them demons. I'm not sure about that, but I've seen some pretty interesting stuff. Or if it's from more of just a metaphysical or a quantum physics perspective, it's just a low frequency. It's something that gets us stuck. Well, I recognize that avoiding it does not work. So what did I do? I went as deep into the pain as I could. And I literally would be sleeping for like 30 seconds. And then the pain in my kidneys and my back and most of my body, but especially in my lower back and kidneys, was so intense that I could not stay still for more than a minute at a time. It was pure exhaustion. And I just kept breathing deep. And then I would go directly into, and I would go into it with my mind's eye, with my pineal gland, my third eye, and all of my being. And I would go right into the frequency. I asked myself questions like, what color is this? What shape does it take? Is it moving or still? Is it framed or in 3D color? Right? These are NLP questions that help us to get to the root of the problem. So I went into it, and at about 4 a.m, I was able to go into it in such a way where I witnessed the whole energy field, all of the pain, all of the suffering. I witnessed it as a frequency, and it was like an orangish red. And it was moving in this like a cloud, mass blob. And I went right into it as a frequency. And my presence within that energy system dissolved it. And I witnessed it visibly and, of course, physically. The pain subsided within about a minute. I went from excruciating, agonizing pain to completely pain-free. I then slept for about quite a while, 4 or 5 hours, had a bunch of glasses of water, and I was on the other side of it. A couple of days of recovery, and I was good. So why might this be relevant to you? In fact, please ask yourself that question. Are there any pains that you are avoiding? Are there any circumstances that you are avoiding in your life? Well, come to the present day, and several things happened all at the same time. The most exciting thing, which was like a catalyst and will be a catalyst for global transformation, is we had a meeting with our Council of 12 and some of our advisors, like Dr. Daryl Wolf. And our council and the advisors are world champions, Olympic gold medalists, transformative, empowering people around the world. People like, if you've ever heard of the science of permaculture, people like Lisa Mollison, which is Bill Mollison's wife. Bill Mollison is known as the father of permaculture. And Lisa is the steward of the Permaculture Institute's vast library of knowledge, of educational material. The books that Bill and Lisa have written are absolutely profound. Within the science of permaculture lies all of the solutions to the world's biggest problems. The ethics of permaculture are so very simple. Earth care, people care, and fair share. Now, the word share has been corrupted in our communist, socialist, dictatorship, evil, BlackRock, governmente society. The truth is that when we reinvest our surplus to earth care and people care, when we achieve mass adoption of the most logical and selfish thing that we could ever do for ourselves, our families, our communities, and our world, and that's to reinvest our surplus not in the beast system, not in the fake monetary system, the money fiat system, but instead reinvest our surplus into the real, into creating life and supporting life. Now, specifically, I'd like to just show you around a little bit. I'm sitting under a mulberry tree. Look at all the food coming in. It's just loaded with incredibly nutrient-dense food all around me. And in the landscape all around me is like the Garden of Eden. This place is 2 years in the making. 2 years ago, there was nothing here but sand. And now it's a thriving food forest with over 240 different species of edible and medicinal plants. It's a habitat for birds and animals and butterflies and bees. We have chickens and ducks and turkeys and honey production. And we have a pond with 7 species of fish. Now, you can't do all this where you're at necessarily unless you've got some land. But if you have the desire, you can start taking action into being a producer of life and abundance. And simple things like growing sprouts or microgreens on your counter will make an incredible difference in your life. If you do have land, or if you know somebody that has land, right now in the United States, there are about 50 million acres of lawns. The lawn is the physical foundation of humanity's enslavement. It is insane. Did you know that there are more poisons, more human resources, and pesticides used on a lawn than any other crop? We were conned into this idea that lawns are a better way by the same entities, the same forces that be. We were deceived to believing that the food supply chain, which, by the way, the average farm to table in the United States right now is about 1,500 miles. Is that sustainable? Well, what has it historically been for humanity? maybe 1.5 miles. We have now created, and I'm going to retract that. What has been created is a poisonous, very unsustainable food supply chain. And why has that been created? Well, because, I'll quote Henry Kissinger. What was that? Okay, sorry, I heard something pop in there. I'll quote Henry Kissinger. Back 50 years ago, he said, if you want to control people, control food. Why would a human being say something like that? Have you ever said anything like that? Of course not, because your intention is not to control people. Your intention, hopefully, is to support people and to serve people and to help people. So this is not the ramblings of a psychopath. Henry Kissinger was the head of the Council on Foreign Relations. He is the guy who appointed Klaus Schwab as the head of the World Economic Forum. This is a strategy. So I just exposed a problem. The problem is poisonous, centralized food production and a very unsustainable food supply chain. The solution is to start becoming a producer and enjoy the process. Now, here's the thing. For those of you who think I don't have the time, the knowledge, the know-how, my friends, what I know about permaculture and nature is a fraction of a percent. It's infinite. But guess what? I'm not growing this mulberry tree. My daughter and I, by the way, come out here every day, multiple times a day on most days, and we pick mulberries and we laugh. And it's like eating sunlight. They're delicious and everybody is happy. Well, I don't grow this mulberry tree. What we do is we design these systems. We design guilds and food forests that provide their own care. We put in the right types of plants, like on the ground here. This is called perennial peanut. Perennial peanut is a replacement for grass, and it's better in every logical way. It has beautiful yellow flowers. It fixes nitrogen in the soil. It creates the ground cover that holds in the nutrients and the moisture. And the flowers are edible. And you don't have to mow it. So get rid of your lawnmower and that liability of gas and energy and poisons and create ground covers in your area. Plant ground covers around your property that actually benefit life instead of serving the tyrants and the slave masters of our world. It's time to take action. And the best action to take is not to scream at buildings and government institutions. It's not to protest insanity. The best sedition, the most effective sedition and protest is to become free, is to become self-reliant, is to be the change that you wish to see in the world. And most of you are saying, I don't know how to do that. That's where we are here to help. Our Earth Council and our Food Forest Abundance team and the 508 nonprofit that we're setting up around inspiring and empowering people to be part of this. And here at Galt's Landing, we are 100% off grid. We produce all of the food, water, and energy needs we meet on site. And we are, in fact, we sold our first membership today to a guy and his wife, Juan and Bree, who came, and they were so excited. And they said, we want to be your first members. So we are creating a membership model where people can come and experience the food forest multiple times a week if you'd like. You can come and experience the healing modalities that we have. You can make your own tea from lemongrass and cranberry hibiscus and moringa and all sorts of dozens of other tea plants around here. Yerba mate, and there's so many more. So we are creating and demonstrating these solutions in such a way as to inspire people and empower people to take action, to take steps towards your own freedom. When we achieve mass adoption of this for joyful and loving reasons, we win the war, we win the game, and we usher in the golden age, my friends. It's happening at scale now, and we invite you to be part of it. You're either going to be part of the beast system, the slave system, or the system of free men and women who are deciding to come together and say, no, I do not comply with any form of force and violence or tyranny. In fact, the other day, actually it was about late October, I got a call from my partner here on site. He said, Jim, there's a guy with a badge on from the county asking about permits. Oh, that's interesting. Well, what should we do? Let's go confront the fella. And that word has a little bit of an edge to it because I'm aware that these people, some of them, believe that they have the authority over us to do harm. That is a very dangerous superstition. They do not have the authority over us unless we give it to them. So I walked up to this fella with my camera blazing, my phone, and I said, hello, my name is Jim Gale, and this conversation is being recorded. What's your name? He said, Alexi. And I then asked him, who gave you permission to come on our property? It's posted. Implied consent is not granted. And he said, I'm sorry, I don't mean to bother you. I will leave now if you want me to. And the way he said that opened up a channel for me, a gateway, a door. And I said, oh, well, that's interesting. It sounds like you're not a complete jackass. And I didn't say that out loud. I said that in my head. And then I proceeded to share with him that what the government will allow me to do in this development that's off-grid, and we do not pay taxes, we do not comply with any form of force and violence, right? Taxation is violence, right? In fact, Goethe said, none are more hopelessly enslaved than those who falsely believe they are free. Well, when I first learned that I was a slave, it was very disconcerting. I said, no, I'm not a slave. Well, then it was shown to me in very clear detail that I had been operating as a slave. Well, I proceeded to share with him that what the government will allow me to do is to poison and kill everything. In fact, you will even subsidize the spreading of poisons that kill life on Earth. And then I showed him the food forest. He left 20 minutes later with tears in his eyes. He is now a big supporter, and he has vowed to never come and bother us again. He's been invited back as a friend. My friends, when we stand in the light, when we stand in the truth that we are more than this physical body, this is a temporary experience. We are spirit. We are God's creation. So are we going to obey evil, or are we going to support God, faith, courage, nature? And if you want to call it Allah, Buddha, Krishna, Shiva, whatever. We are here to support life. It's that fundamentally simple. We are here to support life on this planet. And if you're supporting the other side, if you're invested in the big corporations, these are the death. These created the debt system, which means death. Corporations and debt are the problem. It's time for us to take our fiat and compost it. Fiat is the current unsustainable, unethical slave money system backed by nothing but the tyrants. So take that fiat and invest in your own wisdom and well-being. Invest it in the health and well-being of your land. Now, this mulberry tree, this costs us probably $80 or $120 to put this in the ground 2 years ago, right? I don't know if you can see it now, but that tree has probably 30x in size, definitely 10x, but probably more like 50. Let's just call it 10x. It has 10x in size in 2 years. And now it's producing more than $120 worth of joy and experience in mulberries already. And it's infinite, right? You can count the seeds in a mulberry if you want to take the time, but you can't count the mulberries in a seed. Nature's system, God's system, is infinite in its ability to support us. The myth that the Garden of Eden is a utopic fantasy is impossible. It's not for us in this lifetime. Well, that's one of the fundamental deceptions of the slave master. The Garden of Eden is what I'm sitting in now. It's a place where, without having to maintain anything, and this is key, I really want to get this point across. We could walk away from this system right now, and we could come back in 30 years, and what would it be like? Barring poisons and black rock, right? By the way, black rock is not only the name, it is the intention. Barring the poisons and barring black rock's intervention. In other words, if we just left this system alone, this system would by itself, through the divine creation that we are living in, this system would not only be a jungle on 50 acres, this system would have spread hundreds, if not thousands of miles. Because the wind, the rain, the animals, the birds come in, they eat a mulberry, and then they fly on the other side of the lake and they plant a mulberry tree. My friends, it's time to come back to the real. It's time to divest yourself from the slave system and invest yourself in Mother Nature again, in the Garden of Eden again. And it's the most selfish thing that you could ever do. Because the process, once you say, I'm done with fear, I'm going to publicly say no to all the bullshit. Once you do this, and then you start taking steps towards the solutions, then you are free. Do you want to be free? Are you scared to be free? Well, I'm going to ask you a question. What's more scary? The current trajectory of your life and the life of our planet? Or would you like to be completely free of fear and be willing to die? Because there's no death. There's no death. There's transition. There's ascension. This physical matter, I know this for certain, my friends. This physical matter that we are living in, this earth plane, it is, in a way, the beast system. When Buddha said life is suffering, at first I didn't get that. I didn't get that life is a form of suffering relative to the connection with the divine. I have experienced from time to time that connection. I have breathed as the universe. I have experienced breathing the universe. And everybody can do this. It takes, first, commitment. In fact, a story of an old sage I read one time, he was sitting next to a stream with one of his students. And the student said, "When will I experience enlightenment?" And the sage grabbed his head and put it underwater. And the student started by saying, "Oh, this is interesting." And then after a minute or two, he started shaking and wiggling. Then after another 30 seconds, he was frantic. And he was doing everything in his power to escape the grips of his teacher. And finally, when all panic had set in, the teacher lifted his head above the water and said, when you want enlightenment as much as you wanted that breath, it shall come just as easily. So it's time now to demand and desire and love enlightenment. Be willing to give it all up for the sake of the divine, for the glory of God, for the glory of whatever you consider your spiritual path. Give up the fear for that path. Give up the suffering for that path. Stand in presence, in the glory, the frequency, the vibration, the energy of the divine. Be a witness to the transformation that you will feel, that you are feeling now. Be witness to that. Embrace it. And keep it internal for a little while until you have such faith and courage that you can speak this to the world of deniers, the world that's riddled with pain and trauma and suffering. And you can say, I am free of that. It's time right now to stand with faith and courage together. Faith and courage is the armor of God, and community is a key element of that. The most selfish thing we could ever do is serve other people, because humans are innately reciprocal. The more people that you serve, the more you will be served. Thank you, Dr. Wolf and Drake and everybody on the team, the brave hearts and everybody listening. If you want to design your land to be productive, go to foodforestabundance.com. I've donated all of my equity to the Council of 12 and to the team. This is not about corporation, equity, and profits. I have 4 daughters. This is first and foremost about them and my amazing wife and my amazing friends and family and community and teammates all around the world. I am giving everything that I'm aware of to give to you, because it's the most selfish thing I could ever do, because I have faith that you will support this mission by simply doing it yourself, by simply letting go of the fear and stepping in to faith and joy and courage and love and service. I'm giving this to you because I know that it will achieve the goals that are most high and dear to my heart. I got a little parasite there, but I killed it. All right, my friends, it's time to go out into the world and put down the phones, put down the screens. And just for a side note, what we're looking at right now, most of us, is the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It's got an apple with a bite out of it. The first Apple computers were sold for $666.66. Microsoft took out a patent in 2020 called 2020-666. And it's about the technology to turn this iPhone into a tracking system where it can control your thoughts, your deeds, your purchases. It can literally, using the climate change narrative, it can literally tell you if you've had too many steaks or too many protein bars that month. It will create the UBI, Universal Basic Income, which is a slave tool. My friends, the system, the game that we're in is about your compliance. Without your compliance, they lose and we win. Thank you, everybody. Have a fantastic day.